Outrage and viral reactions were sparked across the globe Friday following a tense meeting between two presidents. To discuss this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, for those who haven't heard about this yet, let's catch them up to speed. The White House was a drama house on Friday when a meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky got derailed. The two countries were set to sign a minerals deal, but as tensions rose, Vance accused Zelensky of being, quote, disrespectful and ungrateful. Tell us what led up to all of this.
You know, it's an interesting setup, and I like, it was very uncomfortable. It was something that you're not used to watching in a diplomatic setting, particularly when, it's such an important, we knew this was a heated topic. We knew where Donald Trump stands, even when he was campaigning for this second term of his presidency. He talked about ending this senseless war. That's how he refers to it. He talks about a lot of the senseless deaths that are happening, both on the Russian side on the Ukrainian side. And then, of course, as you know, he's perceived to be very pro-Russian. And that is what he's trying to establish, that, no, I'm not pro-Russian. I'm just anti a senseless war. Look, he had a lot of issue with Zelensky going around and getting these blank checks from the Europeans, from the United States, from different world bodies. And again, Donald Trump, being a very, the bottom line kind of guy, didn't believe that this is a war to be won. It's a war to be ended. And that's really the best case scenario for both sides, both the Russians and the Ukrainians. So fast forward to Friday, this meeting in the Oval Office got very, very heated. And I'll just give you some baseline point. The fact that Zelensky comes in, he's not wearing a suit. A lot of people talk about his body language, the way that he's dressed, the way that he comes in with his tone was not professional, was not statesmanlike. He did not come there to have a diplomatic conversation, but to really lay the law down to the American president. And that is where J.D. Vance's lines come in, calling him disrespectful and ungrateful, because to their point, Zelensky, what worked behind Trump's back. He comes into the United States in the Oval Office, the highest ranking office in the world, you could argue. And instead of working together and being more constructive and being more respectful, he uses a tone that is disrespectful and demanding, and comes off as very unappreciative, ungrateful. So really, that really is the few pointers for those who missed this. But if you want to watch it, grab the popcorn and watch it on YouTube or somewhere else online, because it is not something that you see every day. These are conversations that may happen all the time, but they don't happen for the public. And I think that that's something that was interesting about this. This was backdoor diplomacy, with us as the viewers in the front row watching. So, it really doesn't take away from the bottom line. It doesn't take away from what will happen. But I do think that it is unfortunate that this was a public showing.
Now, how is the world reacting to all this? Because just before we got started, I was saying, as I was watching the argument, it reminded me of that meme of the angry woman yelling at the cat. And depending on your perspective and what people believe, who's the woman and who's the cat in this argument. But if Zelensky's motive was to use live TV to stir up drama, it probably worked. So do you think this worked out in his favor, and, based on how people are reacting around the world?
It depends what you call to his favor. I'll give you some of the reaction from around the world. Let's start in Ukraine. In Ukraine, this was very, very poorly received. They're already working on removing him from power. They believe that the fact that and I talked to a few of my sources inside Ukraine that told me, the media is calling him out for not dressing appropriately, for not acting professionally, for going into, again, the highest office globally and not having a certain professional decorum to defend the Ukrainians, that they lost their positioning because of his behavior, that it was all about him, and it wasn't well received at all. Look, the media is split here in the United States, again, depending on where you stand. Are you for Trump or against Trump? Are you for Russia or for Ukraine? And that really set the stage for a lot of people's opinions on this. And the Europeans, there were some very awkward tweets showing support for Zelensky, because it was really showing, lack of support for Donald Trump. It didn't really get to the bottom line. Again, if you really put aside Friday's fiasco in the Oval Office and you look at the situation, whoever wants this war to end will, again, sidestep this conversation and say, what is in the best interest of the Ukrainian people and the Russian people? And it is not Zelensky coming and having a screaming shout with the president of the United States in the Oval Office, regardless of who that president is. So I think that it is very important to look, again, at the facts here and look at the best way out. A lot of people tweeted that the winner of Friday's fiasco was Putin, because this debate gives Putin more clout. And a lot of people said that that's not true. The fact is that Donald Trump has already cornered Putin to accept a certain deal. We cannot rewind the 3-year war that we have had. We have to just look at the facts and say, what's the best case scenario that we can get right now? And for Zelensky, that's not to get more money and to continue fighting. It's not to have more casualties on either side. It is to end the war. And I think Donald Trump's very frank about that, to say, you're going to cause, he said to him, you're going to cause World War III the way that you're going. And that there's some truth to that, right? Like, who wants this war to continue? There's nuclear wars, weapons on the table as an option on the Russian side. I think Zelensky has to be more realistic and less about him. I think a lot of people think that, if he is going to advocate for the Ukrainian people, it really should be about what is in their best interest.
And you touched on how Zelensky has some damage control to do for himself amid calls for him to resign. Let's hear more about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, he's brought the people this far, right? And then they're trying to work a deal, I saw some stuff floating around about getting Ukraine NATO membership in exchange for him to resign, or agreeing to this minerals deal and then having him resign. It would be an interesting journey for him to have brought the Ukrainian people to this point and then have him resign. But there are calls for him to resign back at home. With regards to NATO membership, it's not going to happen. That is not something that Russia started this war because of that. One of the reasons for that is that their fear of Ukraine getting NATO membership. It would totally encircle Russia, make them vulnerable to many things. But right now, the deal that's on the table might require Zelensky to resign if he can't move forward and really participate in a meaningful way to end this war.
Now, in response, amid this argument, European nations have stepped up to help. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, along with French President Emmanuel Macron, have put forward a framework for a peace plan between Ukraine and Russia, but it relies heavily on support from the US. Tell us more about this.
Right. So, Macron has worked for a very long time to at least try to insert himself in the conversation here to try to get a ceasefire. He has not been able to. If you recall that long table, it was excessively long. It looked like the Last Supper. To have Putin on one side and Macron on the other, and they didn't get anywhere with that. So now that the United States has really moved the needle to at least bring Putin to the negotiating table and to actually get somewhere with this, they are reinserting themselves again. They want to make sure that this war ends without Putin getting a leg up. I'm sure that I don't want to speak for him, but it seems like, Donald Trump will want to do the same. He's not, make America great again doesn't mean make Russia great again. It means make America great again. And for that reason, I think that Trump is a deals kind of guy. His bottom line is to end this war. I don't think it means, giving Putin everything that he wants, and it doesn't mean to give Zelensky everything that he wants or to give him nothing. It is a compromise, and they'll have to come together. It will help to have the Europeans there to buttress that deal. But again, we have to make sure that the Europeans are on the same team, that they're working alongside the same interests parallel to the United States and not working against us. And hopefully we can take this forward. But I think for them to step up after that meeting to show full support for Zelensky is not a good look either. I mean, if you want to bring Putin to the negotiating table, you can't work in a one-sided way. You have to act as the unbiased moderator here. And I think it's very difficult to do that in this war. I think everyone's shown their true colors. Everyone knows where everyone stands. And now it's just a matter of truly giving each side the concessions that they will accept to end the war.
And European leaders are grappling with how to handle relations with the U.S. since Trump regained control of the White House. They are on the edge amid the prospect of Trump pulling 20,000 troops from the continent. Can you explain this?
Yeah, it's interesting because, you can't live with them, can't live without them kind of deal. Like, Trump has done something very well, I think, and people will debate this, but I'm just looking really from a foreign policy standpoint. If his goal is to, and again, this is not for or against Trump, but this is just looking at the optics of how things are, the chips are falling. If the goal is to make America great again, then he uses our foreign policy aid, money, resources, weapons, manpower as leverage. So when you say to the Europeans, "We're going to leave," or if you say to the Pakistanis or the Indians or whomever's getting a check from us, "We're going to pull the aid." If you're pulling the aid from the Palestinians who are using that money for terrorism, that's used as leverage. I know this conversation will go into how about the Canadian tariffs, and we can get into that maybe later or maybe next week. But the truth is, when you say to the Europeans, "We're going to pull our manpower," it's concerning to them because obviously there is a support system there, but also and there's teamwork there. But again, Trump's message to the Europeans is that we have to work together if we are going to use our resources in the region.
And at least 2 people are dead, with several others injured in a suspected car ramming in the West German city of Mannheim today. It's worth noting this came amid a busy carnival season as well.
Yes, and this is the second car ramming in Germany, and the second terror attack today. We had another terror attack in Israel. Look, terrorism again on the rise. This is your do-it-yourself type of terrorism. If you have a car, you could use it. If you have a knife, you could use it to stab people. Even if you get one death, you're a martyr. You're going to heaven. You're going to get your 72 virgins. That's how it goes. And this is exactly what we're seeing. All of these radicalized elements on the ground, whether they're in Europe or the Middle East, using whatever weapons they have to cause this kind of jihad locally. Germany has had an issue, so has France. We're seeing this, really play out in real time. But as you said, carnival season, we saw something very similar. New Orleans here, New Year's Eve in the United States. So we're no strangers to that kind of behavior as well. But time to root out these elements, not to defend them, not to allow our college students to be rooting for them, and to truly root out this disease.
And as you alluded to, there was a stabbing attack in Haifa today at a central transit hub, resulting in the death of 1 person and wounding 4 others. Lisa, what are the details of this horrific act?
Yeah, this is an Arab Israeli, somebody who lived inside Israel and was, again, enjoying the benefits of being an Israeli citizen and living there. Went on a stabbing spree, killed a 70-year-old man, injured a 15-year-old and a few others. Again, a disease. What ideology causes you to go out and use a knife to take someone's life? He was killed on the spot. The terrorist was killed on the spot, and prevented him from going on and stabbing others. But these were people that were on their morning commute. These were people who were just going about their daily life. A 15-year-old, a 70-year-old. I mean, to lose their life because of one's ideology that thinks you shouldn't live and inhabit this planet. It's really crazy. And what's crazier, Naveen, is that ideology is spreading to us. It's not just in between the Arabs and the Israelis. This is something that has spread to Europe, to the United States, to Canada, and we live among people who feel this way, that want Canadians dead, that want Americans dead, that are burning the American flag on our streets because this is the ideology that they subscribe to.
And as the temporary ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas was to expire, President Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, proposed a temporary ceasefire extension, which was agreed to by Israel. Do you know under what conditions Israel agreed?
Israel has agreed to stopping the war, continuing, and they have also stopped the aid that is going in because what people don't know is that over the last few weeks where we had this first phase of the ceasefire, aid was going into Israel. I mean, you don't really hear of any country giving their enemies aid, food, supplies while they're fighting the same said enemy. And now that enemy has food and supplies for the next 4 months. So they have decided to stop that aid. And that's all you see in the headlines, that Israel is stopping aid to the poor Palestinian people. But you know that aid was always confiscated by Hamas, and they're the ones who allocate and ration and hoard that aid. So it wasn't really going to the Palestinian people anyway. And then you have, the continuation. So there will be further discussions. There are still more than 60 hostages being kept by Hamas. We have dead bodies. We have young people who are hopefully still alive, and Israel is trying to do whatever they can in the next series of negotiations to get those people back as soon as possible. To think that people have been kept for over 500 days in captivity and the world is silent. These are civilians, young people, old people that are just being held hostage by a terror organization, again, because of that same deadly, diseased ideology. Hopefully this next phase and this White House will be able to negotiate the release of those innocent civilians.
Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, thanks so much for your time today.
My pleasure.